41. How did we get to this? Third Pav. How did we get to this? Subaru wondered as he looked around. Sylphie was drooling on his left shoulder, another girl was sleeping peacefully on his right shoulder sitting next to him, and another woman was lying on his lap. Many women were lying all around him. Number 227, the blood is cleaned, said a woman. The other woman nodded, and then looked at Subaru, who was covered in regulus blood that he got from the women snuggling to him. You all, wake up, to make such a mess of our savior's clothes. Number 227 snapped. The women woke up, Sylphie yawned and rubbed her cheek against Subaru's shoulder. Is this what they call a harem, I suppose? Beatrice asked emotionlessly, however one could tell she was jealous. Why are so many women after my contractor? If not for the fact all the women had gone through so much pain and trauma, she would have started blasting El Minya. I am sorry, we had soiled your clothes, Sylphie said with guilt, having regained her mind. She also blushed, realizing how close she was to Subaru. Don't worry, you all have been through a lot. Let's all clean up, take a bath and prepare to leave this place, Subaru said, patting while her head. She felt her heart beating rapidly. Unlike her self-proclaimed husband Regulus, she preferred to have Subaru as her husband. Subaru was so caring towards her. Sir Zero, let us help you to take a bath, suddenly a woman suggested, as if a trigger was pulled. All women's eyes were fixed on Subaru, who shuddered. No need. He quickly used aura and all the blood stains vanished from his clothes as if they never existed, even the foul smell was gone. All the women's faces fell, their disappointment was immeasurable and their day was ruined. There is no way I would take a bath with them, last thing I want is to evolve the entire situation into some sort of orgy. He thought. He knew that these women were being pretty affectionate with him. Some might have already fallen in love with him, however he doesn't want to take advantage of the situation when they are so much emotionally disturbed. Some had their entire families slaughtered by that man, how the fuck will their dead families feel if they knew their savior is doing their daughter or wife from behind, while surrounded by several other women? Thus, Reina was saved from the fate of becoming a cuck. Reina finally returned, manifesting by Subaru's side. She looked around to find many women, some of who were surprised by her sudden appearance. Don't worry, she is my knight, and her name is Reina, Subaru said, waving his hands, and they calmed down. My liege, are they? Yes, they are that Synopsis bishop's wives. Right now, they are preparing to leave, he said. It will take a considerable amount of effort to return them to their homes, said Reina. Yeah, I have a plan for that, he said, and suddenly Betty came out and yawned. I had a good sleep, I suppose, she said, and then looked at her contractor. Say Betty, do you have any way to get them out of here? Subaru asked his trustworthy lowly spirit. I can teleport them to my library, however it would take a huge amount of mana, I suppose, Beatrice said, not betraying her contractor's trust. Fantastic. Mana is the last thing that I am deprived of. Subaru grinned, and grabbing the lowly's hand he injected a huge amount of mana in her. Ah. Suddenly there was silence, Subaru had a blank look, and so did Reina, however their internal thoughts were very different. While Reina was wondering whether to draw her sword, Subaru felt guilty for making Beatrice like this. Reina, there is nothing in this world that my sword cannot solve. Beatrice, somewhat embarrassed, didn't think much of the incident, instead she looked at Subaru with shining eyes. My contractor is the best. In fact, she looked at him happily, as it was the first time in her life that she had gotten so much mana at once after 400 years. Subaru sighed in relief and asked, do you need more mana? It is more than enough to send these women to the mansion, I suppose. Good, Reina, let's talk about what happened with the wise men once we finish rescuing them. Finally, after a while, all the women had gathered. Okay everyone, I have something important to ask of you all, Subaru said, Beatrice and Reina standing by each of his sides. First we will be going to a mansion where I live, and after that it will be up to you on what to do next, Subaru said. Many of them had sad expressions after hearing his words, while some were still emotionless, unable to recover from trauma as well. So I have a proposal for all of you. You see, I am going to start a company. A merchant group if you understand, and I will need a lot of employees, so how about you being the first batch of my employees? He said, surprising not only them but also Reina and Beatrice. Of course, it is for those who have nowhere to go, or don't want to return back to their homes. If you want to leave, I will help you to return to your homes after a few days, he said in a measured tone. Almost all of their families were slaughtered, they had no place to return. Even if they had somewhere to return, they didn't want to. A few were forced to be abandoned due to the witch cult's threat. They had formed a bond with the other women who shared the same fate, they were akin to sisters now. Is it okay, Lord Zero? We don't know much about trading, and how to handle such qualified work, a woman said. Don't worry, you all will get the training for free, Subaru smiled. It wasn't the modern world, where you need over-the-top class education for something which can be learned by a few months of training. Not to mention, since he had saved them, their loyalty will be guaranteed. They were the best employees, and since it will help both of them, it was a win-win situation. Many women were deeply moved by his proposal, some even almost had hearts in their eyes as they looked at him. Seeing the group of beautiful women staring at Subaru as if looking at their future husband, Reina's bitch-o-meter went haywire. She quickly got in front of Subaru and said, I am Reina van Astria, and the loyal knight of Lord Zero. I promise, for those who want to return to their past lives, I will give my full support. Although Reina wasn't the current head of Astria family, she was filthy rich. Even the 2,000 holy gold coins that Subaru got from the clown was just a mere drop in the bucket in front of her resources. So, she was more than ready to take it upon herself to send these hot women away from her lord. She thought at least half of them would choose to return, but unfortunately for her, expectations never met reality. Only 4 women out of 79 were willing to return back to their homes as their parents were forced to abandon them. However, the rest of them decided to stay. Out of nowhere she got an additional 75 competitors. To be continued. The 8th chap is almost finished, which extends this story to the 60th chap. And man, in chap 8, Subaru goes through another important power growth. Especially his authority of lust, it is quite powerful. Any guesses? Any? By the way, let's be king for this week as well. So yeah, give me your power stones and I shall give you chaps. 33 comments, 0 vote. Pissed. Download the app for additional rewards. More events, more perks. Winning you more free perks. Download now. Acros_0. Download app now. 42. Release her. ... Third person POV. That's the last one, Subaru announced, counting as the final woman, carrying her belongings and other essentials, crossed into the library. She gave Subaru a grateful bow before moving further inside. HMPH. Far too many footprints in my precious library. Who is going to clean this mess, I suppose? Beatrice pouted, her small arms crossed as she scowled at the now dirtied floor of the once pristine library. Isn't there some kind of magic that can clean all this? Subaru asked skeptically, raising an eyebrow. However, Beatrice simply sighed. If there were magic spells for every little inconvenience, I would have already found you, dragged you here, and made you my contractor a long time ago. In fact, she grumbled with a slight huff. All right then, I guess I'll have to try something myself, Subaru said with a shrug. He quickly found a bag made from rough fabric lying around. Channeling his telekinesis skill, he created an artificial vacuum by manipulating the air, sucking all the dust, dirt, and debris scattered across the floor neatly into the bag. There, all done, Subaru declared after finishing, dusting off his hands with a small sense of satisfaction. Reina, who had been watching intently, clapped her hands excitedly. That was amazing, as expected of my lord. His finesse extends even to cleaning duties. She praised him enthusiastically, her eyes sparkling with admiration. At this rate, even if he were to just sneeze, she'd still find a reason to praise him, Beatrice thought, twitching her eyebrows in mild exasperation. Nevertheless, she quickly masked her expression and puffed out her chest. Well, as expected of my contractor, I suppose, Beatrice added, giving her own praise, changing her colors. Subaru looked at the two of them, completely speechless. He could only pinch the bridge of his nose, trying to calm himself from the overwhelming, almost ridiculous amount of praise he was receiving. Suddenly, a loud, desperate cry echoed through the mansion. Without hesitation, Subaru grabbed Beatrice and bolted towards the source of the scream, his heart pounding. Reina immediately followed after them, her sword hand twitching reflexively. They raced through the halls and burst into the kitchen, only to find a chaotic scene unfolding before them. Standing there was a woman wearing a maid's uniform, her blonde hair tied neatly behind her, and her green eyes filled with tension. She had one of the women hostage, gripping her firmly by the arm. "Tell me, why the hell are all of you here?" The maid growled, her voice firm and demanding, though the confusion in her eyes was evident. However, her expression quickly shifted to one of shock upon seeing Beatrice, and beside her, Zero and Reina. "Release her, quickly," Subaru said, his tone sharp and full of irritation. How could things go so wrong within just a few minutes of taking his eyes off the situation? "Do as my contractor commands," Beatrice added firmly, her voice carrying undeniable authority. The maid, Frederica, recognized Beatrice immediately. Although she hadn't seen Reina or Subaru Zero before, Beatrice's presence was enough to make her reconsider her actions. Quickly, Frederica released the woman, who fled to another panicked woman standing nearby. "Aye, what is going on here?" Frederica finally asked, looking bewildered. Subaru rubbed his temples, feeling a headache coming on. "Let me guess, you're one of the maids working here?" "Yes, that's correct," Frederica answered, giving a respectful bow. "I am Frederica Bowman, one of the head maids of this mansion. A few days ago, I was called here by Ram to assist with household duties, as the workload was becoming overwhelming for her alone." Subaru gave a small nod of acknowledgement. "Got it. You must be Lord Zero if I am not wrong," Frederica guessed, and Subaru nodded. Frederica turned her attention to Reina, who she did not recognize. Although she had heard tales of the famous Sword Saint, she had never seen her in person. And frankly, she hadn't expected the Sword Saint to appear here, of all places. "I am Reina van Astria, the current Sword Saint and a loyal knight sworn to Lord Zero," Reina introduced herself proudly, deliberately emphasizing her loyalty as she raised her voice slightly, shooting a proud look at Subaru. Frederica's mouth fell open in shock. She looked between Reina and Subaru in utter disbelief, her mind struggling to process what she was hearing. "I am also Zero's contracted spirit, in fact," Beatrice declared smugly, grinning wide as she dropped yet another bombshell onto the poor maid. Frederica opened and closed her mouth several times, resembling a fish out of water. No words came out. What was she even supposed to say to all of this? Sensing Frederica's distress, Subaru quickly decided to defuse the situation. "Anyway, why don't we move to the guest room? I'll explain everything properly there. Also," he added, turning to the women who had been held hostage, "are you all right? You aren't hurt, are you?" "We were startled, but we are fine. No injuries at all. Thank you so much for your concern, Lord Zero," the woman who had been grabbed answered gratefully, bowing her head. Subaru smiled slightly, relieved to hear they were unharmed. Meanwhile, several other women had gathered around the kitchen doorway, peeking inside with worried faces, clearly wondering where the earlier scream had come from. Seeing the gathering commotion, Subaru sighed deeply once again. Could he not catch a single break today? After patiently reassuring everyone and clarifying the misunderstanding, the women finally returned to their tasks, preparing dinner for everyone as originally intended. Subaru led Frederica into the guest room, sitting down comfortably on a large sofa. Beatrice perched herself casually on his lap, and Reina sat closely by his side, both acting like it was the most natural thing in the world. Subaru began explaining the entire situation to Frederica, who listened intently. "I see," Frederica said thoughtfully after he finished. "When I saw those women entering the kitchen with large bags, I found it extremely suspicious and acted purely on instinct. Thankfully, I didn't hurt them. We brought a significant amount of food supplies from the castle's storage to ensure the women would not face any shortages once they relocated here," Subaru explained, understanding the source of the confusion now that everything was laid out. "I shall apologize to them later," Frederica said sincerely, bowing her head in remorse. "Furthermore, I will personally help organize their accommodations. This mansion is large enough to offer comfortable lodging to all of them for the time being. However," she added thoughtfully, "once the others return, we will likely need to discuss a more permanent solution regarding their residence." Reina nodded in agreement, but her expression grew a bit colder as she turned to Frederica. "We shall address that when the time comes. For now, in the absence of Lord Rosewall Mathers, Lord Zero will be acting as the current master of this mansion," she declared with an edge of warning in her voice. Frederica immediately straightened up, realizing her mistake. I see. Then, please forgive me for my earlier discourtesy," she said, standing up and bowing once again respectfully. Subaru waved his hand dismissively, smiling warmly. No need for all that formal stuff. Just treat me like a friend. There's no need to stress yourself out over something so trivial. Honestly, Subaru had no intention of becoming one of those prideful nobles whose arrogance was bigger than their penis. Ayu. Anyway, he continued with a relaxed sigh, let's not dwell on it too much. For now, let's just take it easy and relax a little. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to them, a different kind of commotion was beginning to brew back in the royal capital of Lugnica. To be continued. A.N. Had to edit with Ayan then proofread again. I changed some lines and now it matches my story 95% perfectly. The rest of the 5% went to explaining everything in detail, so yeah, it is 99% equal to what I have written. Man, I miss Eamon, he was doing such a nice proofreading job also. Also we aren't first. I am kinda disappointed. But listen me out, do you want stable updates for a longer period of time, or immense fun for a short period of time? I am just 1k words from finishing the 8th chap by the way. We are currently in the 6th chap. So yeah, let's be in top while we can. I don't ask for you to give me power stones selflessly when I am not uploading a single chap any week, however I do expect support when I am uploading chaps. You don't want it to be another Fate Poseidon, right? Evil smirk. 31 comments 0 vote. 43 report bonus chap. ... Third Pav. Indeed, the corpse of the white whale now lies beside the great tree of Flugel, reported Julius, kneeling respectfully before the assembled sage council. I see. Do you support this claim as well, Sir Felix? One of the council members inquired. Naya. Yes, sire. Lady Crush herself has personally verified the words spoken by Lord Zero, Felix replied, confirming his words. Crush stood silently behind him and nodded in confirmation. Still, I do wonder, Anastasia interjected with a harmless smile curving her lips, how such important news traveled so swiftly. Perhaps we can offer an explanation, Bordeaux said, stepping forward, clearly preparing to drop a revelation. It was Lady Reina who brought the information to us. She has sworn her loyalty not to Lady Amelia, but to Lord Zero, Miklatov stated, watching their expressions intently. There was a ripple of surprise among them, though it was nothing compared to the stunned silence that spread across the faces of the wise men. The wise men, however, noticed the reactions and read between the lines, though they chose not to question them further. Very well then, one of the sages finally declared. Lady Crush, I request that several of your knights accompany the royal knights and recover the carcass of the white whale. It shall serve as undeniable proof of its subjugation. It shall be done, Crush replied, her voice composed, yet a bitter edge remained beneath her formal tone. Whether it was being rejected by Zero, or being used merely as a tool to verify her rival's accomplishment, the taste was bitter either way. The news that Reina had pledged her allegiance to Zero was troubling, not only for her, but also for Anastasia. It shifted the delicate balance of power. The two had anticipated the possibility of such an outcome and had formed an alliance to prepare for it. Unfortunately, what they had feared had now come to pass. After a brief and quiet exchange, the meeting concluded. The group dispersed, later gathering again in a private lounge to speak more candidly. It has been a long and taxing day, Wilhelm sighed deeply. The course of the royal selection had changed drastically in mere hours. Tell me, Julius, Anastasia asked, a mischievous twinkle in her eyes, do you like that man? What a strange question to ask, my lady. I would think no one particularly likes the man who soundly defeated them, Julius replied with a small chuckle, though a flicker of unease lingered in his eyes. The memory of his defeat was still fresh, and he knew full well how close he had come to being permanently crippled during their battle. Yes, that was rather an insensitive question for me to ask. Please forgive my thoughtlessness, Anastasia said with a soft smile. Julius fell silent for a moment, his mind wandering. Initially, he had disliked Zero, his arrogance, his bold declaration of being Amelia's knight, his open disdain for noble customs. Zero had openly criticized the entire nobility and the royal knights in front of the royal selection committee. Julius had been incensed and took it upon himself to confront him, telling himself it was for the sake of protecting decorum and preventing others from taking matters into their own hands. He claimed to act to prevent unnecessary conflict, to preserve order, to correct Zero's impertinence. Perhaps that was true. But somewhere during the fight, he forgot all of that. He became consumed with pride, and ultimately, he paid the price. His honor. It now lay in pieces, shattered by his defeat at the hands of Subaru. No, Zero. Seriously though, Anastasia said, her tone returning to a more serious edge, with the sword saint herself swearing fealty to that man, we need to rethink our strategy from the ground up. Our carefully laid plan to defeat the white whale, it completely failed, Crush said bitterly, her hands clenching into trembling fists. Even Wilhelm, stoic as he was, felt a powerful wave of emotion rise within him. Forgive me, Sir Wilhelm. I failed to give you the chance to avenge your beloved wife, Crush said quietly, bowing her head deeply before the aged swordsman. Please, my lady, rise. This is not your fault in the slightest, Wilhelm responded solemnly. I suppose this is simply the fate I must endure. His eyes, usually calm and resolute, now glistened with sorrow. Perhaps, this is the judgment I deserve, for the years I spent turning my back on my own granddaughter, Wilhelm said, his mind recalling the harsh truths Subaru had thrown at him. Shame welled up in his heart as he reflected upon all that he had done, or rather, failed to do, for his granddaughter. I believe you should make an effort to mend that relationship, Anastasia said gently. Remaining at odds with the Amelia camp won't benefit us in the long run. She continued, the truth that one of Amelia's supporters was the one who brought down the white whale will soon be revealed to the world once the evidence is confirmed. And even if the wise men chose not to question us about the two Sin archbishops, that information will become public eventually. It was plain to see that for both personal and political reasons, Wilhelm needed to reconcile with Reina. In any case, Anastasia said, shifting the conversation, I've made a decision. Unless either of you have some grand strategy in mind, my camp will be departing for Kuraragi tomorrow morning. You're not interested in discussing how to counter the Amelia camp's momentum? Crush asked, frowning. To be perfectly honest, there's not much more we can do at this stage. We need to divert our attention and pursue a different course, something that will boost our popularity in another way, Anastasia explained with a shrug. I see, Crush said, her voice quiet with resignation. To be continued. So yeah, let's be in top 1 this week again. 26 comments 0 vote. 44 The Sanctuary's Barrier. Third POV. The following day, Subaru prepared to depart for the sanctuary, especially considering that Amelia and the others had yet to return. Before he left, Frederica handed Subaru a special necklace, an artifact designed to guide him safely into the sanctuary's bounds. After exchanging a few final words with the Regulus wives, who all tilted their heads cutely and listened to his instructions like obedient little children, Subaru set off. Accompanying him on this journey were Beatrice and Reina. As they traveled, Beatrice clutched Subaru's hand tightly, her usual composure slightly disturbed. Is something troubling you, Betty? Subaru asked gently, noticing her discomfort. Beatrice didn't respond verbally. Instead, she sent him a telepathic message, her voice soft and vulnerable within his mind. The sanctuary, it is the graveyard of my mother. I'm not sure how to feel, now that I've broken the contract that bound me. Don't worry about it, Subaru replied reassuringly, with a mental grin. If she dares try to push you around from beyond the grave, I'll make sure she gets a proper punishment, for being a very bad girl. Smack smack. Beatrice gave a small nod. She believed Subaru was simply trying to comfort her with humor, but his sincerity still warmed her heart. Meanwhile, Reina was at the reins, guiding the carriage skillfully. As they approached the entrance to the sanctuary, she suddenly pulled the reins, bringing the vehicle to a halt. She peeked through the curtain into the carriage and reported calmly, Lord Zero, I'm detecting a barrier directly ahead of us. Subaru stepped down from the carriage, Beatrice beside him, and surveyed the path. This must be the sanctuary's protective barrier, he concluded. He extended his hand toward the invisible wall and his hand passed through without any hindrance. Then to test the limits of the barrier, Subaru summoned his yin sword, the blade manifesting with a shimmer of dark energy, and made a clean cut in the space before them, slicing through dimensions. Yet the barrier healed immediately, the spatial wound closing itself, mending as if it had never been harmed. Subaru frowned. He returned the yin sword to its place, and in that instant, a portal materialized at his chest. A hilt slowly emerged from within the swirling vortex. With a firm grip, he drew out the life sword, its aura thrumming with power. This time, he slashed at the barrier again. Unlike before, the effect was drastic, the magical wall shattered like fragile glass, the pieces dissolving into the air, leaving a wide gap. I understand now, Subaru said, studying the fading fragments. This barrier isn't spatial, it's spiritual. Attacks based purely on destruction or elemental magic won't affect it. You need to counteract it at the source, on a spiritual level. TCH. If only I could draw my sword from its sheath, I could have obliterated this barrier myself, Reina muttered with frustration, her voice sharp. There's no need for such tension, Beatrice interjected, stepping forward. I am well acquainted with the nature and mechanics of the sanctuary's barrier. In fact, allow me to explain. She raised a hand, pausing for dramatic effect before speaking. Firstly, this barrier makes it incredibly difficult for outsiders to enter the sanctuary. Secondly, and more importantly, it prevents anyone with mixed blood from leaving the sanctuary's confines, Beatrice explained with precision. Wait a minute, are you saying that even someone with the slightest trace of demi-human ancestry will be trapped inside and unable to leave? Subaru asked, brows furrowing with concern. He had been vaguely aware of this detail, but he never knew the full extent of it. Beatrice nodded solemnly. Yes, that's correct. Only those who are fully human or fully demi-human can cross the boundary unimpeded. Any individual with even a minimal amount of mixed heritage would be unable to exit, and attempting to do so would result in their death, in fact. Reina gasped as realization struck her. Wait, that means many of the villagers won't be able to leave. Lugunika's population is largely mixed blood, many citizens have both human and demi-human ancestors. Subaru nodded, yet Rosewall believed this place was a suitable refuge. He must have had some other motive in mind. Reina narrowed her eyes, her suspicions growing. I believe I may have some insight into that motive, Beatrice said hesitantly, drawing the attention of both Subaru and Reina. She hesitated for a moment longer, then decided to reveal the truth. Beatrice, myself, is an artificial spirit of yin, a construct created by none other than the Witch of Greed, Echidna, she revealed with quiet gravity. Witch of Greed, Reina interrupted abruptly, her expression turning wary as she took a cautious step back and eyed Beatrice suspiciously. Reina, Subaru called her name gently but firmly. I already know the truth about Beatrice, at least, most of it. I trust her completely. Please don't make this difficult for her. Reina looked at Subaru for a moment, then slowly let out a breath. The coldness in her eyes melted slightly. Forgive me for my outburst, then. Lady Beatrice, please do continue. Beatrice gave a small nod and continued. Mother, Echidna, gave us 2 books of wisdom. They were the original prototypes of what later became the witch cult's Gospels. These books provide us with the events of the future, though not always complete. Reina was visibly stunned by this revelation, though Subaru remained composed, having heard part of it before. Rosewall A. Mathers, the current head of the Mathers household, is descended from Mother's disciple, the original Rosewall. Each generation has inherited the goal the original Rosewall set for them. I was given one of the books to guide me in finding that person, the one destined to inherit the Forbidden Library and become my contractor, Beatrice explained, glancing at Subaru. She hesitated once more, then added softly, but he never came. Perhaps it was a test that I failed. Still, I'm glad that in the end, I formed a contract with Subaru. Subaru reached out and gently patted her head to comfort her. Beatrice smiled back and resumed. On the other hand, Rosewall's family had a different mission passed down through the ages. His plan is to resurrect Mother, Echidna. That purpose has persisted for generations. Resurrect her? How would he even do that? Reina asked with a deep frown. I'm not entirely sure, Beatrice admitted. The method is likely recorded in his own book of wisdom. However, if I'm not mistaken, both Subaru and Lady Amelia should be crucial part of his plan. To involve my lord in his evil scheme. It is absolutely unforgivable, Reina exclaimed, her fists clenched with fury. Calm yourself, Reina, Subaru said, his tone steady. I have a plan. For now, let's play along, act unaware of everything. We'll assess the situation inside the sanctuary. Once everyone's safety is confirmed, we can decide how to proceed. Beatrice nodded in agreement. Reina looked at Subaru, then suddenly knelt before him. Forgive me, my liege. I've been acting recklessly lately. She had always been calm, calculating, and composed. But ever since she encountered Subaru, something had changed within her. The emotions she had long bottled up seemed to erupt uncontrollably. Worry for Subaru's well-being had made her impulsive. It's alright, Subaru said with a warm smile. Also, when we're in private, just call me, Zero. You may be my knight, but you're also my dear and precious friend. Reina bowed her head slightly and smiled. Understood, Zero. And one more thing, Subaru added, raising a finger. Don't call me by my real name anymore, not even in private. Until the threat of gluttony is eliminated, I can't afford to expose any weakness. Beatrice blushed, mildly embarrassed as she was getting comfortable with calling him by his real name. Got it, Zero, Reina replied, steeling herself. She resolved then and there to regain her composure. Reacting emotionally to everything was putting a strain on her lord, and she wouldn't allow that anymore. After finalizing their plan and discussing a few contingencies, the trio resumed their journey toward the sanctuary. To be continued. 28 comments, 0 vote. 45 panic. ... Third POV. The moment they passed through the barrier, the necklace around Subaru's neck began to glow with a radiant light. In the next instant, they had bypassed all the traps and were teleported to a safe location within the sanctuary. However, the force of the teleportation was so intense that it almost knocked Beatrice unconscious. Subaru, meanwhile, felt a presence rapidly approaching. Reina sensed it too and quickly dismounted from the carriage. Get lost, you bastards! A voice roared, and Garfield came charging toward them like a mad beast, his eyes wild with fury. He leapt at Reina, fully intent on incapacitating her with a single, devastating blow. His fist came crashing down at her with a force that created sonic booms in its wake, his body moving so fast it was barely a blur. He expected her head to explode like a watermelon from the impact, to end her life instantly. But contrary to his expectations, Reina calmly raised her arm and caught his fist in midair. The earth beneath her remained unshaken. The soil that should have been blown away from the impact was untouched. Her body didn't move a single inch. Garfield was stunned beyond belief. His eyes widened in horror. And then, before he could react further, Reina retaliated. She threw a punch, a simple one, without any technique or flourish. It struck his chest squarely. A sickening crack echoed as several of his ribs fractured, blood gushed from his mouth, and then she grabbed him by the neck, holding him effortlessly. Tell me who you are and why you attacked us, Reina demanded in a cold, unwavering voice. Wait a minute, I know him. I think, Beatrice murmured, squinting. Subaru nodded. Doesn't he look like Frederica? You know my sister. Garfield choked out between coughs of blood, writhing in pain. Reina released his neck, letting him drop to the ground with a thud. More blood poured from his mouth as he coughed violently. Hey, do something, he's going to die at this rate. Subaru shouted in panic. He didn't want Frederica's brother to die, not like this. Beatrice hurried to his side and cast healing magic. Within moments, Garfield's breathing steadied and his complexion improved. You're amazing, Betty, Subaru said, giving her a big thumbs up. Meanwhile, Reina turned to Subaru and bowed deeply. I apologize, she said, her voice laced with frustration. She wanted to cry. Why was she always messing things up? She prided herself on being a good knight, maybe not as perfect as Julius, but still. There's no need to apologize, Reina. You acted to protect us, Subaru said reassuringly. Besides, he tried to kill us the moment we arrived. It's his fault. He knew that Garfield's punch could have easily killed a normal person. He deserved that punch, for his intentions. You did the right thing. Subaru gently patted her head. Good girl, he praised. Reina's face turned crimson, her brain short-circuited. Reina.x has stopped working. And with that, she collapsed backward. Reina, Subaru shouted in alarm. Thus, Subaru became the first person to defeat the world's strongest with nothing but kind words. Not even 1 million divine protections could have predicted that XD. Reina later held the reins of the ground dragon, sensing a village nearby. Soon, their carriage rolled into the settlement, drawing wary eyes from the villagers who watched with suspicion. A woman stepped in front of the carriage, it was Rem. Her eyes widened in surprise upon seeing Reina driving. Reina's standing was equal to her lord's, perhaps even above it, should she inherit the Asteria household. For her to drive the carriage, suddenly meant something. However, Rem decided not to put her nose into it. Subaru disembarked from the carriage alongside Beatrice, and before he could say anything, 5 glowing orbs of mana rushed toward him. Father! Gloria cried as she crashed into him, hugging him tightly. It is wonderful to see you return, Father, Agni added joyfully. Hooray! Father is back, Aqua cheered, spinning in delight. It is nice to have you back, Father, said the calm and collected Sylphie. I missed you, Father, Gia said quietly. Both Reina and Beatrice stood still, utterly gobsmacked at the scene. Why your quasi-spirits, they've all become full-fledged spirits? Beatrice asked, stunned. Reina nodded, just as confused. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention that, Subaru said with a sheepish grin. Reina leaned in to study the spirits more closely, clearly intrigued. Beatrice, on the other hand, suddenly felt a pang of inferiority. HMPH, I am still a great spirit, she thought, puffing her chest with renewed pride. She was Subaru's only great spirit, the best one, in fact. Unfortunately for her, copium could only last that long. So this is Father's new spirit, huh? Looks weak to me, Gloria said. Just so you know, Betty is a great spirit. In fact, she's way better than any of you low-tier spirits. Beatrice snapped, clearly offended. HMPH. This concubine is far more valuable than a great spirit who leeches mana from Father, Gloria replied coldly. An invisible arrow of humiliation pierced Beatrice's heart. I'm still smarter and stronger than all of you, Beatrice retorted. We can give mana to Father and support him without becoming a burden. Your weak body only makes you an easier target, Gloria said without mercy. Another invisible arrow struck Beatrice's pride. As an artificial spirit, she was technically easier to destroy than regular spirits. A strong physical strike was all it took, unlike natural spirits who required powerful magic to be dispelled. In simple words, she was a glass cannon. Subaru watched their heated exchange in speechless awe. Even Rem appeared amused. All right, that's enough. I understand that you might not get along, and I'm not going to force it. But you will not fight each other, Subaru said firmly, his voice filled with authority. Seeing Subaru reprimand Gloria made her spirits dim slightly. This concubine understands, Father, she replied, pouting and turning away. Betty will prove she's not a burden. Betty is the best great spirit there is. Beatrice vowed silently, a spark of determination igniting within her. The other spirits retreated into Subaru, merging with him once more and moaning softly in delight, while Beatrice chose to remain outside, visibly sulking. Lord Zero, Lady Reina, and Lady Beatrice, please follow me inside, Rem said with a graceful bow. Subaru tugged gently at Reina's sleeve and whispered something in her ear once Rem looked away. She gave a small nod in response. Inside the residence, Ram stood quietly beside a bed, while Rosewall lay upon it, completely wrapped in bandages. Rosewall's face darkened upon seeing Reina enter, but he quickly composed himself. I presume the witch cultists are dead? He asked slowly. Subaru nodded. Yes, every last one of them has been eliminated. Now tell me, why are you covered in bandages, and where's Amelia? It's a long story, Rosewall drawled. Well, go ahead, we've got all the time in the world, Subaru replied. Reina, those bandages are fake, right? Subaru asked telepathically. Without a doubt, Reina responded in kind. You see, this place is a witch's graveyard. A graveyard, for a witch? Subaru asked calmly. Rosewall narrowed his eyes. Yes, the witch of greed, Echidna, met her end here. She created the sanctuary and the barrier. It prevents anyone with mixed blood from leaving. And since 1/3 of the villagers might have mixed heritage, we're trapped. Normally, Reina would have questioned why he allowed them to take refuge here in the first place. But she remained silent. The only way to break the barrier is to pass a special trial. However, only certain individuals are able to take it, and this is the result of me trying, he said, gesturing to his bandages. And who are these, certain individuals? Subaru asked. Those with mixed blood having both human and demi-human heritage, Rosewall answered. But the villagers don't fully know who among them qualifies. And the people living here aren't exactly eager to volunteer. So, Amelia had to take the trial. She's taking it right now, isn't she? Subaru asked, already certain. Rosewall nodded in confirmation. Rem, please take us to the trial grounds. Rosewall, we also brought Garfield. He's unconscious in the carriage. You'll want to deal with him, Subaru added. Rosewall gave a nod, and Ram turned to go handle it, though a look of pure disgust crossed her face upon hearing Garfield's name. And with that, they departed, leaving Rosewall behind, who was filled with panic. To be continued. A.N. Okay, give me your power stones now. 47 comments, 0 vote. 46 meeting Echidna. ... Third person Pav. Rem guided them toward the sanctuary's trial grounds. Standing before the ancient structure, they all took a moment to observe its worn, moss-covered exterior, the creeping vines giving it an eerie but sacred air. If a pure human or demi-human enters, the result will be the same as what happened to Lord Rosewall, Rem explained solemnly, still convinced her master was suffering from grievous injuries. My liege, I shall enter and assess the situation for potential dangers, Reina offered, stepping forward with resolve. Reina, there's no need, Subaru interrupted, raising a hand to stop her. If you go in and somehow break the mechanism of sanctuary, it could result in the destruction of the entire sanctuary. It's too risky. Her confident smile faltered for the first time in her life. Never before had she been told not to do something because she was too powerful. The realization hit her unexpectedly. She was suffering from success. I understand, she said quietly. Subaru turned toward his companions and summoned his contracted spirits. You all wait outside, I'll go in alone. If I don't come out right away, don't panic, it just means I've been deemed eligible to undergo the trial, he explained, reassuring each one of them with a calm tone. Very well, father. This concubine shall wait patiently for your safe return, Gloria responded with a respectful bow. Okay. Yup. Understood. With a nod, Subaru entered the sanctuary. The interior was dim and quiet, and he soon found Amelia unconscious, lying on the cold stone floor with a terrified expression etched on her face. As he hurried toward her, something tugged at his consciousness. He could have resisted, but he didn't. He allowed it to pull him away, his body going limp as he collapsed beside her. Natsuki Subaru opened his eyes to find himself in a place resembling the Windows XP desktop background, a rolling green field under a flawless blue sky. Ahem. In reality, he was now within the realm that housed the souls of the deceased witches, though why it looked like Microsoft's default wallpaper was anyone's guess. Greetings, Natsuki Subaru, came a voice, serene and melodic. He turned to see a stunning woman with flowing white hair and jet black eyes. Her porcelain skin was unblemished, and the elegant jade and black hairpin in her hair only added to her captivating charm. In a word, hot. In 2 words, freaking hot. But instead of awe, Subaru's expression was laced with irritation. Normally, I'd ask where I am, but instead, what the hell is wrong with you? He demanded sharply. Echidna blinked, visibly confused. This was not how she had expected their first meeting to go. You left that poor girl alone for 400 years waiting for a guy who doesn't even exist, he said, voice heavy with anger. Understanding dawned on her face. Ah, you're referring to Beatrice and the contract. Subaru sat in the chair across from her with purpose. Exactly. The Witch of Greed gave a slight smirk. It was a fascinating experiment, really. I wanted to see if she would act on her own will. To be honest, she was a disappointment. Subaru narrowed his eyes but said nothing as she quickly shifted the subject. Anyway, that's a matter for another time. For now, why not have some tea? She gestured to the cup on the table before him. He knew exactly what it was, her bodily fluid. But drinking it was necessary to adapt to her miasma. The last thing he wanted was to go insane out of hygienic pride. Without hesitation, he downed the cup in one gulp. Oh, you drank it without a second thought. She exclaimed with amused surprise. You didn't even question if something might be mixed in. If you're foolish enough to poison me, the sword saint waiting outside will give your graveyard a nice makeover, he replied flatly. Her eyebrow twitched as the mental image of a furious sword saint annihilating her entire graveyard crossed her mind. Well, lucky for me, it wasn't poisoned, she said, then smirked, though it was my saliva. So, an indirect kiss then? She laughed, genuinely entertained. You're quite the amusing one. Is that where your mind goes? Have you fallen for me already? You are undeniably beautiful, Subaru said honestly, but I've seen someone even more beautiful. The faces of Reina and Satella flickered in his mind. Echidna pouted but composed herself. Anyway, let's get to the real reason you're here. You mean granting me permission to undertake the trial? Subaru asked. Yes, but I'm offering more, Something far greedier, she said with a gleam in her eyes. I am the Witch of Greed, Echidna, bearer of all the world's knowledge. So tell me, what knowledge do you desire? She proclaimed grandly, rising from her seat with open arms. The peaceful setting shattered like glass. The lush field vanished, replaced by a cosmic void as stars and galaxies swirled around them. Dark silhouettes of other witches began to emerge, each one shrouded in mystery. Perhaps you seek knowledge of Minerva, the Witch of Wrath, whose healing touch brought more ruin than salvation. Or maybe Carmilla, the Witch of Lust, whose beauty toppled empires. Typhon, the Witch of Pride, whose childish sense of justice left devastation in her wake. Or Daphne, the Witch of Gluttony, creator of the great beasts to end hunger, only to birth more suffering. Maybe Sekhmet, the Witch of Sloth, who pushed away the divine dragon beyond the great waterfall just to nap in peace. Or even, myself, Echidna, who in her endless pursuit of wisdom committed sins she still regrets in death. Finally, a thick smog engulfed the space. A dark figure loomed beyond, veiled and mysterious. Or perhaps, Satella, the Witch of Envy, who destroyed half the world and killed the other witches, all for the sake of love, Echidna whispered. The scenery snapped back to its original verdant form. Subaru gave a slow, deliberate clap. Wow, that was dramatic. All we were missing was popcorn. Her expression twitched. This was not the reaction she had expected. Anyway, there is something I want to ask, he said, arms folded. Yes, tell me, ask me anything, she cried with enthusiasm, practically bouncing in her seat. Finally, a chance to show off her infinite knowledge. She was already planning how to impress him, ready to name the steep price of forbidden truths. Who would win in a fight, Anos or Rimuru? She blinked. Pardon, you heard me. Who's stronger, Anos Voldigoat or Rimuru Tempest? They're fictional characters from my world, he said calmly, crossing one leg over the other. Boy, what kind of question is that? OFC Rimuru wins. She stared at him, mouth opening and closing in confusion. What kind of question? Silence lingered for a moment before she sighed. Ask me anything else, except that, she finally relented. Subaru rose from his chair and began walking away. Where are you going? She asked, clearly distressed. You've shown me just how capable you are, so I am leaving, he said, not looking back. Ask me anything else. I'll show you my worth. She begged. How I am going to answer such a difficult question? Ask me anything else and see how impressed you will be. She pouted. Sorry, but I know everything else I need to. As for what I need to know you cannot tell me, he said with a face full of regret. She clenched her fists and said with a very nice smile, Jay, just ask me something else. Fine, he said, pausing. Tell me the law of universal gravitation. She stiffened. I know the laws of motion. Of course, because I taught them to Betty. I understand how your authority works now, he said. Fine, you win, but just so you know, you can't leave here without my. Her words caught in her throat as she watched Subaru tear open a rift in her domain using nothing but his psychic energy and aura. Call me when Satella's here, he said before disappearing through the breach. For the first time, the Witch of Greed was left alone to question her own choices. I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, I absolutely hate you, she screamed, tears streaming down her face like a heartbroken child. But he was already gone. AGHHHHHH. To be continued. Okay, it is a new week, I give you 1 bonus chap if we get in top 20, 2 bonus chap if we get in top 10, or 3 bonus chap if we are in top 3 by the end of the week. That's a promise. Also, I have uploaded an auxiliary chap showing all the progress of our boy, so yeah, sure to see that. 43 comments 0 vote. 47 dear. ... Third person Pav. Subaru gazed solemnly at the unconscious Amelia, who lay sprawled on the cold stone floor of the trial chamber. Her face twisted and turned, caught in the throes of a nightmare that refused to let her go. Beads of sweat rolled down her forehead as she muttered incoherent words, her body trembling. Suddenly, the glowing symbols etched onto the ancient walls flickered and dimmed, as though the magic sustaining them had abruptly run out. Amelia's eyes snapped open, wild and panicked. She gasped sharply, her pupils dilated in fear. It wasn't me. I'm sorry. Please, forgive me. Forgive me. Forgive me. Forgive me, she cried out, voice rising to a hysterical pitch as tears poured down her cheeks. Her chest heaved with each sob. Subaru didn't hesitate. He rushed to her side and gently pulled her into his arms. Amelia, calm down, I'm here, he whispered, his voice soft but firm as he tried to steady her erratic breathing. But his words only seemed to intensify her breakdown. She clutched at him, crying louder and more desperately. Then, just as suddenly, her body went limp in his arms. Her consciousness slipped away again, leaving her completely still. He sighed heavily. Carefully, he shifted her into a princess carry and stood up. Outside, Rem was waiting patiently near the entrance. The moment she saw Subaru emerge with the unconscious Amelia in his arms, her expression turned somber. It seems Lady Amelia has failed the trial again, she said softly, her voice tinged with worry. She attempted the first trial yesterday, and this was her second. But, it's not looking good. Subaru nodded. After a moment, he said, whatever, let's take her inside to rest. Rem agreed, and they began walking back toward the residence where Rosewall was currently staying. The spirits surrounding Subaru slowly re-entered his body, their glow fading as they did. As they walked, Rem suddenly remembered something. By the way, Lord Zero, Meili, the Mabeast girl has been kept confined. She's being kept in a room nearby, in one of the adjacent houses. Meili, huh, Subaru muttered, furrowing his brow. Let's hope she doesn't cause any more trouble. Just as they were nearing the house, a figure leapt in front of them, blocking the path. It was a boy, muscular, wild-eyed, and brimming with reckless energy. Hey, fight me, Garfield shouted, smashing his fists together as he glared, not at Subaru, but at Reina, who stood nearby with her usual cold, unreadable expression. Chop, came a sudden sound, followed by a pained yelp. Ram had appeared out of nowhere and landed a sharp karate chop to the back of Garfield's body. You absolute idiot, she said, voice dripping with disdain. If you want to die, go throw yourself into a ditch. Don't pollute the air around me with your presence. Ram, stay out of this. Garfield barked, gritting his teeth. He winced, still clearly nursing old injuries. Subaru, observing the scene, raised an eyebrow, his face a mixture of confusion and disappointment. Your bones are still broken, and you're picking a fight. With Reina, of all people. Yes, Garfield replied, puffing his chest with pride. Subaru rubbed his temples. Is this what idiocy looks like in physical form? He wondered. No, Subaru, don't do it, don't say it. This isn't one of those over-the-top wuxia fantasies. Don't ruin the moment with that cliché line. A voice in his mind pleaded. Do it. You know you want to. Rem stepped forward, her expression tinged with concern. You do realize that Reina is the current sword saint, the strongest warrior in the world, right? Garfield nodded smugly. Of course, Miss Ram made sure to let me know after I woke up. That's why I have to fight her. If I beat her, I'll be the strongest. Reina remained motionless, her eyes half-lidded with mild disinterest. She didn't respond, only choosing not to dismember Garfield on the spot out of consideration for her lord's wishes. Subaru couldn't hold it in any longer. He placed a hand on Reina's shoulder and stepped forward dramatically. Pointing a finger at Garfield, he narrowed his eyes and, in a grave tone, said, You are courting death. There was a pause. The worst part, Subaru thought, she's not even hot. That would have at least made sense. After saying this line, one of the things in his do list was crossed out. A silent beat passed before the air erupted in reactions. Beatrice, Ram, Rem, even Aqua, all looked at Subaru in stunned silence, eyes wide. You bastard, did you just say I'm courting death? I don't know what you meant. But are you insulting me? Garfield screamed. His rage flared and his arms transformed into massive beast-like claws. Ram took a step back and muttered, unbelievable. The stupidity is contagious. I need to move before it infects me. I don't care if you fight me or not. Garfield howled. I'll fight you right here and now. In a flash, he broke the sound barrier, launching toward Subaru with a ferocious punch. But Subaru stood firm. With impossible calm, he reached out and caught Garfield's wrist midair. The shockwave of the attack rippled through the ground, scattering dust. Without a word, Subaru stepped forward and headbutted Garfield with such force that the boy's skull audibly cracked. Blood sprayed from Garfield's nose as he crumpled to the ground, completely unconscious. Aqua, Betty, patch this idiot up before he dies from his own foolishness, Subaru said casually. Though I'm not sure even healing magic can fix what's wrong with his head. Aqua popped out cheerfully. Okie dokie, father, she said and started casting a healing spell. Not to be outdone, Beatrice joined in, grumbling, honestly, we have to. He'll only cause more trouble if he dies here, I suppose. Subaru crossed his arms. If he pulls this stunt again, we'll beat him, heal him, and repeat the process until he understands reality. Ram shivered slightly. Not even I would think of such a cruel punishment. Meanwhile, Reina, who had watched the whole scene in silence, looked at Subaru with hearts in her eyes. Even when he's torturing someone, he's so cool. Handsome and merciless. Lord Zero is perfect. Dear. To be continued. The bonus chaps will depend on the ranking we get by the end of the week, so donate all the power stones you have. 27 comments 0 vote. 48 She is pathetic to be honest. ... Third person Pav. Ah. Amelia bolted upright in bed, her scream slicing through the silence like a knife. Her body trembled, sweat clinging to her forehead as she gasped for air, still caught in the grips of panic. Within moments, Subaru burst into the room. His eyes quickly scanned her state before rushing to her side. It's okay, I'm here, he said softly, as she hugged him. Zero. Amelia cried out, burying her face into his chest as her trembling began to subside. His arms around her felt like a lifeline, anchoring her back to reality. He gently patted her back, murmuring soothing words into her ear. There, you're safe now. How are you feeling, Amelia? Subaru asked, leaning back slightly to meet her gaze. Her violet eyes shimmered with tears. I failed again, she admitted, her voice a whisper of despair as she slumped against him. Subaru gave her a reassuring smile, one hand moving to softly ruffle her hair. Come on, cheer up. So what if you failed twice? I know you can do it, he said confidently. Amelia looked up at him, her expression conflicted, caught between disbelief and the flickering spark of hope. Really? But, I don't even remember why I failed. I just started crying, and then, nothing. She frowned and clutched her head. Every attempt to recall the events brought on a sharp, splitting headache. Don't worry too much about it right now. What you need is food and a break, Subaru said with a cheerful tone. He stood and gently grabbed her hand. Amelia hesitated but nodded, allowing herself to be pulled up. As she followed behind him, her hand still in his, a blush slowly crept onto her cheeks. What is this feeling? She wondered, stealing a glance at Subaru's profile before quickly averting her gaze, her heart fluttering. When they arrived in the dining hall, the atmosphere shifted. Rem and Ram stood in place beside a seated Rosewall. Beatrice was perched in her usual corner, while Garfield sat at one end of the table with a sulking expression. Reina sat stiffly, and notably, Garfield seemed to avoid both her and Subaru's gaze entirely. He was clearly still traumatized after being thoroughly defeated by Subaru and Reina in their earlier encounter. After being praised by Reina, it knocked out all the courage he had. Subaru led Amelia to a seat, but just as they settled, Reina abruptly shifted hers and seated herself beside him, a move that didn't go unnoticed by anyone in the room. If I recall correctly, one of you is still serving as my maid, right? Subaru asked casually, his eyes on Rem. Rem immediately straightened and stepped closer, bowing with visible nervousness. I deeply apologize, Lord Zero. In the chaos, I almost forgot my punishment, she said sincerely. Subaru gave a small nod, accepting the apology without further comment. Rosewall's whimsical tone suddenly cut through the room. I see you failed again, dear Amelia. Amelia flinched, her head dropping in shame, a hollow smile creeping across her lips. This won't do, Rosewall continued, his tone suddenly sharpened. The villagers grow more restless by the day. If this situation continues unresolved, their trust will vanish. His gaze flickered to Subaru. And Lord Zero, perhaps you shouldn't coddle her either. A ruler who cannot bear responsibility is hardly worth the title. Despite the harsh words, Rosewall's true intention was the opposite. He wanted Subaru to support Amelia. That had always been part of his plan. Reina, however, didn't hold back. Her voice rang clear, her words like blades. Indeed, Lord Zero, a woman who collapses under the smallest pressure and constantly leans on others, she's unfit for the crown. Rosewall nearly choked. What the hell, Reina? That was supposed to be rhetorical. Please, Zero, don't listen to her. Keep supporting Amelia, he mentally pleaded, sweat beading at his brow. Meanwhile, Amelia looked stricken. Humiliation and helplessness welled up inside her. What have I actually accomplished? She thought bitterly. She'd lost her insignia on the very day she received it. If not for Zero and Reina's intervention, she wouldn't even have remained a royal candidate, she might not even be alive. Then there was the near attack on the village. She'd been blissfully unaware of the danger until Zero and Reina had swooped in and neutralized the threat. The memory of the royal capital resurfaced next, her inability to speak up, to defend herself. She and Puck had a contingency plan, but Puck had warned he might lash out violently if provoked. It was Subaru, Zero, who saved her reputation, shifting public perception in her favor, calming the nobles, and shielding her from ridicule. Then there was the white whale. She hadn't even participated in that. It had been Subaru again, leading the charge, slaying the beast, and protecting the village from the witch cult. She had been tasked with a simple evacuation, and failed. Now, she was trapped in the sanctuary, completely reliant on others once more. The crushing weight of her perceived uselessness brought tears to her eyes. And then came the cruelest blow. TCH. Crying again like a helpless child. Garfield sneered. She's pathetic. How could she possibly lead a kingdom? The silence that followed was damning. No one contradicted him. Rem and Ram looked away awkwardly, they knew how useless their royal candidate had been. Anastasia had wealth, an entire merchant conglomerate under her thumb. If she ruled, the economy of Lugunica would flourish. Crush was nobility and strength combined. A strategist and warrior, capable of turning back invasions with courage and tactics. Felt was rough around the edges, sure, but she was a wild card. She had potential and determination. Even Priscilla, brash and arrogant as she was, had status and power. And at least, well, she had some appeal to fans with her opai. But Amelia, what was she useful for? A lap pillow. Subaru didn't even love her in this timeline. Everyone in the room thought of many complaints in their mind. Subaru finally sighed. You all really suck at comforting people. He reached for Amelia's hand once more. Amelia, hey, come on. Don't cry, pretty please, with sugar on top, he added, attempting to lighten the mood. Unfortunately, charm and tact weren't Subaru's strong suits. Author's note, his talents lie elsewhere. Ahem, bedroom skills, haha, just kidding, maybe. They're right, though, Amelia sobbed, I've done nothing but fail. What kind of queen does that make me? Subaru remained beside her, gently patting her back, his expression kind and patient. Rem and Ram exchanged a knowing look and sighed together. Meanwhile, Reina scowled, her fists clenched under the table. HMPH. As if Lord Subaru would ever choose a pathetic, whiny mess like her over me. She fumed inwardly, trying to reassure herself. Author's note. I want to make Reina the love interest, I really do. But man, these damn anime flags. They keep sprouting like weeds. Subaru smiled softly at Amelia. Feeling a bit better now? He asked. She nodded, cheeks still red with lingering embarrassment, but the tears had stopped. Then Rosewall, ever the observer, spoke again. Zero, I've heard you entered and exited the trial chamber without injury. Subaru nodded. Yeah, seems I qualify to take the trials. The room collectively froze in surprise. Rosewall's grin spread ear to ear. Perfect, it's all happening, just like in the book. Author's note. Bro really said, I've seen this episode before. Wonderfuel, Rosewall sang. Then I implore you, Lord Zero, to take the trials in Amelia's place. Save us from this impasse. No, Amelia suddenly stood, her voice firm for once. I've made up my mind, I won't rely on Zero anymore. I'll take the trials myself, she declared, eyes blazing with renewed determination. Really? Garfield scoffed. What are the odds you don't come back sobbing again like a baby? Subaru shot him a glare that immediately silenced the beastman. Beatrice huffed. Honestly, this girl can't even function without Bubby. It's absurd in fact. Amelia's gaze swept across the room, only to be met with frowns and skepticism. Disappointment, doubt. Her voice wavered as she began to speak again, but Subaru beat her to it. All right, enough, he declared, rising from his chair. Instead of tearing her down, why not support her? I believe in Amelia, she will succeed, I'm sure of it. Rosewall tilted his head, eyes gleaming. You sure do trust her a lot. Subaru smirked. I trust her a lot more than a guy who dresses like a circus clown. Rosewall's eye twitched. Ram coughed, barely holding back a comment on Zero to save her lord's reputation. Garfield snorted with laughter. The tension began to break. The discussion was over, for now. To be continued. We are just a spot down. Don't you all want 3 bonus chaps? Fine, I promise 4 bonus chaps if we are number 1 by the end of the week. 23 comments 0 vote. 49 liar. Liar. You betrayed me. ... Third person Pav. So, how exactly are we supposed to get that cat out of this rock? Subaru asked, his voice tinged with both annoyance and confusion as he turned to his assembled spirits for suggestions. Why don't we just toss an algo at it? Proposed Agni with a smirk, flames flickering across his form. Or maybe throw it into a river. Aqua chimed in nonchalantly, as if the idea were the most logical in the world. What if we dissect it apart, piece by piece? Offered Sylphie, her tone disturbingly calm. Why don't we just throw more rocks at it? Gia added, genuinely pondering her own idea. Each bizarre suggestion made Subaru's eyebrow twitch harder with frustration, while Amelia, standing nearby, looked absolutely horrified by the sheer absurdity and violence of their proposals. Foo, I have a better idea, father. Came a haughty voice, drawing everyone's attention to Gloria, the self-proclaimed pride of the spirit family. HMPH, come forth, great spirit of fire, and grovel at this concubine's feet. She declared dramatically, striking a pompous pose by shining brightly in golden light. Quote, quote. An awkward silence swept over the group. Everyone simply stared at her in stunned disbelief, until Beatrice burst out into a fit of laughter, unable to hold it in. Have you forgotten that you don't have any feet, I suppose? Beatrice teased, her voice laced with amusement and mockery. HMPH. That's rich, coming from the glass cannon. Gloria shot back, her mana form quivering indignantly. What does that mean, I suppose? Beatrice snapped, eyes narrowing dangerously at the younger spirit. Subaru, however, was entirely uninterested in their squabbling. To him, this was nothing more than the usual chaos, one a 400-year-old lonely spirit lowly with abandonment issues, and the other a few months old young spirit with Gilgamesh disorder. Yin and yang they might be, but harmony? Not even close. Fed up, he decided to take action. Puck, come out right now, or I swear I'll tell Amelia all about the birds and the bees. Subaru threatened, his voice carrying a mischievous warning. A spark of energy shimmered in the air, and the fire spirit finally emerged, floating before Subaru with narrowed eyes. Hey, don't you dare fill my Leah's innocent mind with that kind of garbage. Puck barked protectively. But even as he spoke, he realized he had just made a critical mistake. Good, now that you're out, Subaru turned toward Amelia, who gave a small nod, already sensing something serious was about to unfold. Puck, why didn't you answer me when I called you? Amelia asked gently, her eyes filled with concern and hurt. Puck flinched. Well, you know how all dads need a bit of alone time now and then, right? Yes, alone time, he said hastily, inching backward toward his glintstone. But Subaru moved swiftly, grabbing the spirit midair before he could retreat. Hey, let me go, Puck protested, wriggling in Subaru's grasp. Should I tell Amelia about the fact that you sealed her memories? Subaru's voice echoed inside Puck's mind, speaking through telepathy. Telepathy. Wait, how do you even know about the sealed memories? Puck's panic flared, and he froze in place, glaring at Subaru with wide eyes. I have my ways, Subaru responded grimly. But more importantly, do you even realize how damaging it's been for her? Her psyche is fracturing, she's emotionally breaking down. Shut up, you don't understand, you don't know what she went through, how she used to wake up crying every single morning. If I hadn't sealed those memories, she would have lived in endless torment. Puck shouted back within the silence of their minds. Perhaps you were right, back then. But now you're the one preventing her growth. She's trapped in a mental cage of your making, and she'll never move forward unless you stop being so overprotective. Puck's fury surged, and with a burst of power, he escaped Subaru's hold. Both Amelia and Rem, along with the others, watched in confusion as the tension between Subaru and Puck escalated, without a single word being spoken aloud. Their expressions shifted, jaws clenched, eyes locked in invisible conversation. Only Beatrice and Reina seemed to understand. Telepathy, Beatrice whispered. You will have to sever the contract, Subaru said at last, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. The statement sent shockwaves through the group. What are you saying, Zero? Amelia asked, completely bewildered, while the beast of the end began to growl ominously. I will not break my contract with my daughter. Puck snarled. His fury flared as dozens of sharp, glacial spikes materialized behind him, aimed squarely at Subaru. Before he could launch them, a fiery aura surged forward. Agni floated in front of Subaru, his blazing body crackling with rage. Great spirit or not, no one attacks my father under my watch. The other spirits gathered protectively around Subaru, their elemental energies humming ominously as the atmosphere thickened with mana. Wait, stop, don't fight, what is going on? Amelia pleaded, clearly overwhelmed. Subaru sighed deeply, then finally spoke the truth. Puck has sealed your past memories, Amelia, that's why you're failing the trials. You don't even realize what you've lost. Amelia's expression collapsed, her mouth opened in disbelief, and then she turned toward Puck. You believe him over me, Leah? Puck's voice cracked, pain flooding his eyes. The fact that she even considered Subaru's words felt like betrayal. Puck, is that true? She asked, her voice trembling and the cat spirit flinched. Of course not, why would I ever twist our contract like that? Puck said, trying desperately to deny the accusation. My divine protection confirms that he is lying, Reina said flatly, her eyes glowing faintly. The color drained from Puck's face. Puck, please, just tell me the truth. Amelia begged. Puck clenched his teeth, his body visibly trembling. Then, at last, he sighed in defeat. I wanted to help you. I only ever wanted to protect you from your pain, to stop the nightmares, the endless tears. But his confession sliced through Amelia like a blade. Liar, liar, cheater, you betrayed me, you sealed my real memories from me. She screamed, sobbing uncontrollably. The words stunned Puck, who stared at Subaru with a look that said, see what you've done. Listen, Leah, Puck whispered, floating toward her slowly. I only ever wanted what was best for you. But before he could finish, Amelia slapped him, hard. You betrayed me too, just go away, I don't want to see you anymore. She cried, turning away from him. Puck opened his mouth, trying to speak, but then closed it in silence. He vanished into his glintstone without another word. Amelia broke down completely, her sobs racking her body as she collapsed into Subaru's arms. The group fell into stunned silence, the weight of the moment settling over them like a storm cloud. Subaru held her tightly, gently resting his chin on her head as she wept. Meanwhile, Rem watched silently, a bitter thought blooming in her mind. Lady Amelia may not be fit to become queen. When the sobs finally quieted, Amelia lay still in Subaru's embrace, drawing comfort from the warmth of his body and the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. Subaru sighed, his expression somber. Did I go too far? Should I have handled this more delicately? He wondered. Perhaps I should have taken it slower, but then again there is no time to go slower. But even in the turmoil, one thought remained clear to him. Still, I have one more card left to play, he thought. To be continued. People are saying I give 5 bonus chaps. I am going to be honest, I haven't written anything for the week for this FIC, this is the 6th chap, and I have completed the 7th chap a week ago, that's how I have the chaps to release. I want to write the chap, but when I have mood, I don't have time, and when I have time I am not in the mood to write. I want to get a time period of another week after releasing the bonus chap, that's why I cannot increase the chap limit. But yeah, considering we are in top 3, and should remain in top 3 by the end of the week, I will give the promised 3 bonus chaps, I will try to see if they are longer as well. 23 comments 0 vote. 50 Master Flugel is that you? ... Third Pav. So now our task is to revive a potentially deceased great spirit of Earth. Agni asked, her tone half curious, half concerned. Not dead, just unconscious, Subaru corrected her calmly. He will likely need to absorb a significant amount of mana before regaining full consciousness, Beatrice remarked, her eyes focused on Subaru as she cradled Gius's glintstone delicately in her hands. There are 2 crucial objectives we need to accomplish, Subaru continued after a moment of silence. First, we must dissolve the contract between Amelia and Puck. Only then can she begin to recover her lost memories. He paused briefly before continuing, secondly, we must awaken the slumbering great spirit residing within this glintstone. He was like a father to Amelia. His presence is important for her emotional balance and stability. Only then, Subaru added with a heavy sigh, can I even begin to imagine Amelia successfully overcoming the sanctuary trials. My liege, why don't you simply use the life sword and bring an end to this farce? I don't see any benefit in helping Lady Amelia, Reina asked bluntly, clearly unimpressed with the ongoing efforts to support the half-elf. Her words cut through the air like a blade, mercilessly targeting Amelia. Subaru didn't flinch. Reina, a true friend helps another grow. They don't step in to solve every problem like an overprotective caretaker. This is Amelia's trial. If she cannot overcome it on her own, then perhaps she should give up on her dream of becoming the queen. His voice was firm and his words blunt. Even Subaru knew how childish current Amelia was to be a ruler. She needed to grow, and Subaru will be the one to become from a useless half-elf to a regal queen. Reina said nothing and then slowly nodded, acknowledging the hard truth Subaru had spoken, though she didn't seem to care about it much. I am a spirit of earth, Gia said thoughtfully, her gaze now fixated on the glowing glintstone. Should I try lending him some of my mana? Are you an idiot? Beatrice snapped instantly, her tone sharp with concern. That could cause regression in your spiritual form. Gia said nothing more. She definitely enjoyed her sentient existence and wasn't keen on risking it, especially since she was used to inhabiting Subaru's soul, a place she found extremely comfortable. Maybe I should try, Subaru said, stepping forward with a plan. Let's see if I can wake him with some of my other abilities. With that, everyone grew quiet, eyes fixed on Subaru as he sat down, holding the glintstone firmly in his hands. He gently reached out with his psychic abilities, allowing his consciousness to make contact with the dormant spirit within. He entered the mental plane of the glintstone, softly nudging at the great spirit's sleeping consciousness. Moments later, the spirit began to stir. Within the ethereal mindscape, the great spirit of earth slowly opened his eyes and, upon seeing Subaru, immediately called out, Master. Huh, Subaru blinked, startled, wondering if he had fucked up Gius's mind somehow. Master Flugel, is that you? Gius asked again, tears welling up in his eyes, overflowing with emotion. Subaru's eyes widened as realization dawned. So this is yet another clue, pointing toward me possibly being the great sage himself, he thought. I'm sorry, but I'm not Flugel, Subaru replied quietly. I see. I mistook you for someone else. Gius's expression shifted into deep sorrow. He could now clearly see that Subaru's hair and eye color were different, and his youthful face was not the same as Flugel's. Wait a moment, I remember, I killed her. I remember everything, Gius gasped, his voice trembling as a flood of terrible memories returned, memories of killing Fortuna, and being manipulated by Pandora into committing unspeakable atrocities. Gius, I know your mind has been torn apart by guilt and despair for far too long. Pandora used you, twisted you, but you have to stay strong, Subaru said, moving to his side and placing a comforting hand on the spirit's back. I killed Fortuna, I almost harmed Amelia, I am nothing but a monster. Gius sobbed, regaining his sanity but collapsing under the weight of his remorse. No, Gius, it wasn't your fault. You were manipulated, controlled. You are a victim too, not the true perpetrator. Subaru said with unwavering conviction. Really? But what I've done, it's beyond forgiveness. I murdered Fortuna, how can I ever face Amelia again? Gius, Subaru said firmly, Amelia needs you now more than ever. To her, you are a father. She's alone, frightened, and lost in her own mind. She blames herself for everything, even for things that were never her doing. You are the one who can help her find her way back. She's just like you, Subaru continued, his voice softening. Burdened by guilt, haunted by what she believes were her failures. But none of it was truly her fault. Her memories were stolen. Her suffering, like yours, was orchestrated by Pandora. Gius's eyes widened in horror and rage. Pandora, that wretched manipulator. How dare she use Amelia like that? He quickly understood the meaning behind Subaru's words. There are mistakes in this world that could never be forgiven, Subaru said, his voice now somber. However, the mistakes you and Amelia made weren't your intention, in fact it was far from it. You were manipulated, you both were forced, you tried to protect them, everyone, unfortunately for you the foe you faced was extremely strong. You did your best, Subaru finished. Gius broke down once more, sobbing uncontrollably. Subaru stayed by his side, offering silent support as the Great Spirit vented years of pain and sorrow. Eventually, Gius's tears slowed, and he straightened his posture. Thank you, he whispered. I will no longer run. I will face my sins. I will atone, and most importantly, I will help Amelia. That's good to hear, Subaru said, nodding. Can you manifest physically? Can you come out? I am still lacking in mana. If only I could regain some, I might be able to, Gius admitted, clenching his fists in frustration. Without hesitation, Subaru channeled his aura, an ethereal, healing energy, through his hands and into the glintstone. Eyes closed in deep concentration, he guided the soothing waves of spiritual energy directly into Gius's fragmented spirit. The healing began to take effect. Spiritual scars faded, and vitality flowed back into the dormant Great Spirit. Moments later, Subaru's eyes opened as he withdrew his consciousness. The glintstone in his hands began to glow brightly. With a sudden flash, the spiritual form of Gius materialized in front of the group. Gius, Beatrice whispered softly, her voice tinged with emotion. Miss Betty, Gius said, his voice heavy with nostalgia and reverence as he turned to look at her. Then, he turned to Subaru and bowed deeply. Thank you, for giving me this second chance. The Great Spirit of Earth had awakened, ready to fulfill his purpose once more. To be continued. A.N. had to proofread this chap. Sai so yeah, now Amelia's second father is here. Man, she has 3 fathers if we think like this. If it was hentai, you can already see the past. Anyway, we dropped to 4. Let's see if you will get 3 bonus chap by the end of the week or not.